I'm pleased now to introduce a special guest joining us today, MP John Barlow. John Barlow was elected as Member of Parliament to represent the federal riding of McLeod on June 30th of 2014 and was re-elected in 2015, 2019, and 2021 to the riding of Calgary Foothills. He currently serves as the Shadow Minister for Agriculture, Agri-Food, and Food Security. Previously, John has served as Shadow Minister for Agriculture and Agri-Food, for Interprovincial Trade, and for Development, Employment, Workforce Development, and Labor. John grew up in rural Saskatchewan and raised his family in southern Alberta. Before being elected to office in 2014, John had a 20-year career as an award-winning journalist with the High River Times and served as the associate publisher and editor for the Okotoks Western Wheel. Please join me in welcoming a friend of the grain farmers of Ontario, MP John Barlow.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff Crosby, for having me again this year. I think it was a few years ago I had my first opportunity to present at the March Classic, and I think the last time I had an opportunity to speak to GFO, you guys were great to bring me in via Zoom after one of those great Air Canada collapses in terms of their ability to get flights to leave Ottawa. So it's great to be back, and I'm glad I went after MPP flack, because then I can dispel every rumor he made about Ontario and Alberta agriculture. But no, I like to speak more on a national scale and how proud I am to represent this industry, not just in my own riding of Southern Alberta, but certainly across the country and around the world. It is a great pleasure to be with all of you here at the March Classic and see such an incredible turnout and celebrate your 15-year anniversary, and certainly speak with many of you about the accomplishments of modern Ontario and Canadian agriculture, but also some of the challenges you may be facing, and perhaps some of those solutions that we can help afford you and offer you. You know, certainly when we were preparing what we were going to speak about today, we went through a lot of different versions and ripped it up and started over again, as it seems every morning we wake up, President Trump has said something else, or China's done something else, or a different statement's been made in Europe. But I think the essence of what I want to leave with you after this speech today is one of opportunity. And I know everyone is anxious and concerned about what's going on south of the border and the challenges that is putting upon your shoulders and the burden that all of you in this room are having to carry. But I look at this as an opportunity, a window of opportunity that we must take advantage of. And if we don't take advantage of this opportunity, this is a failure of every level of government, of industry, of stakeholders, and of agriculture as a whole. And that might sound a little bit odd. Why would I look at what's going on right now as a window of opportunity? But I think President Trump has provided us with something that has not happened in a very long time. Whereas Canadians, we're united on a few things that we have not been united on for perhaps decades. When is the last time you had 75% of Quebecers now supporting an east-west pipeline? When is the last time that you've had Canadians talking about the importance of resource development, or removing interprovincial trade barriers, or diversifying our trade, or ensuring that we have that value added here at home, that we are much more self-sufficient and secure? It's been a long time since we've had Canadians in agreement on all of these things. Now, I would like to add, Conservatives were kind of right on all this for the last 10 years, but it's taken a little while for everybody else to get on side. But now we have to take advantage of this opportunity. And if we don't, it's a failure. And to do that, we have to make sure that we all work together. We have the right leadership in place and the right policies in place and the right team in place, that we take advantage of this. And I think Canada is poised, unlike any other country on the planet, to do just that. Because we can go to President Trump and offer him something that no other country on the planet can offer him. We can go to President Trump and offer him energy security. critical mineral security, security of the North, and perhaps most importantly, food security. By working together, we can offer the President a partnership like no other country can offer. But again, are we going to take advantage of that? Is Canada poised to take advantage of that opportunity? That's why I feel we're at a crossroads. We have to make a choice here in the next few months on which direction we are going to go. Are we going to remain in the status quo? And I know there's been some announcements over the last couple of days of removing a carbon tax and capital gains hike. Carbon tax wasn't removed, it was just put on pause. The new Prime Minister said last night that if we want to trade with the world, we must have a price on carbon, a price on pollution. I will argue that that carbon tax will come back if they are re-elected. It will just come in a different form. And that's why I think it's so important that we have change and the right leadership in place to take advantage of this opportunity that we are given. And as MPP Flack said, Ontario, maybe more than any other province, is poised to take advantage of that. When you look at $27 billion of economic growth that is coming from agriculture alone in this province. You are growing products on more than 6 million acres of farmland. And, you know, obviously Alberta is always home to me and has a special place in my heart, but it is amazing to come through Ontario and just see the diversity of agriculture. Now, I know this is Grain Farmers of Ontario, but I've had an opportunity with my colleague, Dave Epp here, who's not far away and been a phenomenal advocate for agriculture. Dave, I've been on a tomato harvester now. I've helped harvest celery and carrots. I've been through a potato farm yesterday. You know, these are things that we don't really see in the mountains of Alberta. Although I did find it very interesting that across from our hotel you have Rocky Mountain Pizza here in London, Ontario. So I'm assuming that's owned by somebody from Alberta. But now, why I think this is such an important time in our history and a crossroads is, and again, why we need that leadership, is you look at the facts that we are being faced with. Annually, Do More Ag and farm groups and advocates do reports on asking farmers what their biggest stressors are. And as you can imagine, usually every year, it's commodity prices, weather, succession planning. But for the last 3 years in a row, that has not been the answer. I'm sure you can guess what the answer has been. Government regulation and red tape is the number one stressor for farmers and ranchers across Canada. We have to change that you have a partner that you were going to work with, that you can reach your full potential. And that potential is quite clear. When Farm Credit Canada did a study last year, and it showed the economic potential of Canadian farmers, and it showed on an annual basis, Canadian farms usually increase their production and their yield by about 2% annually. But for the past decade, that production has grown at less than 1%. If we could just get you back to where you normally are, not even setting the bar a little bit higher, but get you back to your average of 2% growth, that's $30 billion in cash receipts in your pocket. Jeff can do a lot with $30 billion at GFO. That is the potential that we are missing out on. By removing interprovincial trade barriers across Canada, which will allow trucking and products to be moving interprovincially, that is $150 billion in missed GDP that we are missing out on. That is more valuable than any other free trade agreement Canada has around the world. The most important free trade agreement is the one that we do not have. How does that make any sense? But those stressors that government and those regulations are putting on farmers is very real. And my question would be why? But why are we putting on carbon taxes, capital gains hikes, tariffs on fertilizer, pesticide and fertilizer reduction policies? Why are we doing this? Because the stats tell a very different story. The facts tell a very different story. And I know many of you in this room have heard this when I spoke to you on Zoom, but it's kind of my goal to make sure that anyone I speak to knows these facts. The Global Institute of Food Security did a study just over a year ago, which I know many of you have probably read, but I would ask you to share these two anecdotes with your social network and those who you work with or meet with on a daily basis. The carbon footprint of a ton of canola grown in Saskatchewan, the carbon footprint of that canola is 67% lower than canola grown anywhere else in the world. 67%. A trainload of wheat grown in Canada can go around the world 3 times before it has the same carbon footprint as wheat grown anywhere else in the world. Those are the facts. And why are we not talking about that every single day? Now, I know we talk amongst ourselves about our accomplishments, but we don't share that with the rest of Canada. And that's helping grow that divide between the consumer and urban Canadians in many cases to what you're doing at the farm gate. But let's put that in a global scale. So on average, emissions from agriculture in a country are about 28% of their emissions as a nation. In Canada, emissions from agriculture are 8%, a third of the global average. So as Canada, when we're responsible for 1.6% of global emissions, 8% of that 1.6% comes from Canadian agriculture. No other industry can make that claim that we have increased yield, we've increased production, while at the same time reducing our carbon footprint and our impact on the environment. We should be lauding that around the world. But instead, our current leadership goes to COP in Glasgow and says, we're going to reduce fertilizer use by 70% or by 30%. What he should have said is he got on the stage and he should have said to Europe, you know what, you want to reduce your fertilizer use? We are happy to show you how to do that because we're 70% more efficient in fertilizer use than any other country on the planet. And we do that by minimal till, 4-hour nutrient stewardship, precision agriculture. We will export our machinery that we make right here in Canada. We're happy to share our skill set and our knowledge, but that's not what has happened. But that will be the change, hopefully, in a few months. So, folks, I am very optimistic about the potential of Canadian agriculture and the direction that all of you in this room can help take Canada. Because I know, and our team knows, how important agriculture is to Canada's economy and our growth not only here, but around the world. And I know the burden that all of you carry on your backs as helping address food security here at home, but also around the world. And I will leave you with this, and I want to leave some time to take some questions as well, is how important it is for us to understand that Canada is one of only a handful of countries that produces more than we can consume here. Food security is one of the top priorities around the world. Canada has that potential to help address that food insecurity, again, not only here at home, but around the world. And we keep talking about environmental sustainability, but I think the most important thing we need to be talking about is economic viability. If you are not economically viable as farmers, the rest of it doesn't matter. We need to get rid of the carbon tax. We need to get rid of the capital gains inclusion tax hike. We need to get rid of the regulations and red tape that are holding you back. We have to ensure that PMRA and CFIA, those agencies, are a partner to Canadian agriculture and not an adversary. You need to make sure the federal government can't be everything for you, but there are some things that they should have that you don't have to worry about. A competitive tax and regulatory regime, access to reliable supply chain, access to labor, and access to global and local markets. That will be the focus of everything that we do. And I hope to work with all of you to make sure that we see that come to fruition. So thank you very much for your time. There is hope on the horizon, and I can't wait to see what all of us can accomplish working together. Thank you very much for having me.